Hey there, it's Andrea, and welcome to the Voice of Influence podcast. Today I have with me Rahier Rahman. He is the founder and CEO of Turn, an innovative HR tech company whose products are revolutionizing talent acquisition by dramatically speeding the hiring process and greatly reducing the cost through autonomous data-driven sourcing and screening of the contingent and hourly workforce. Right here, it's great to have you on the Voice of Influence podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
So right here, you've got a lot of really interesting things, I think, for us to visit about today. I know that you have an interesting start to the story, like origin story for Turn. Would you share with us how you got started with this company?
Sure. I've been pretty acutely aware, apologize, of the hourly workforce for some time. I built a previous company that was in fintech that was providing money transfer services to the base of the pyramid. So new immigrants, hourly workers, et cetera. And as part of the discovery of what people do to earn money, I started learning about the prevalence of hourly work. And that started back in 2009, 2010, when people started working at Amazon distribution facilities, when those were new, and then, started growing into the gig economy. And then you started to see the gig economy format being applied to lots of industries beyond like delivery. You went into like healthcare and nursing and, pharmaceutical delivery and all these other interesting areas, caregiving, that all moved to that on-demand format. So the rise of hourly labor became, something that was really fascinating to me. And that was really the transition where I said, there's a lot of companies emerging. There are a lot of companies utilizing hourly labor. But the way companies find and screen and validate workers has really not changed a lot in the last 10 to 15 years. And most of the evolution was just coming from what was done for the W-2 worker. So nothing was really built for the hourly workforce and the unique nature of hourly employment. So that's really where I saw an opportunity to build a company that was squarely built on the things that matter for the hourly worker and the employer of hourly workers. So that's really the genesis story.
Yeah. Okay, great. So what are the things that matter for the
Yeah,
hourly worker and the employer?
So two difference, on the hourly employer side, what really matters, in my opinion, is the speed at which you can hire somebody and the cost at which you can hire somebody. When you are doing high volume hiring, and high volume hiring we define as anyone that's hiring over 500 workers a month, what you really care about is getting those workers to start quickly. You don't have the protracted hiring process that a W-2 worker might have. If I'm working for a podcast company, I go through an interview process, a background check. It might take 2-3 weeks to get me hired, and that's okay. But when you're building a worker delivery fleet, or you're working, a workforce fleet that does caregiving, and you need 10,000 people every month on that platform, you need people to join. So speed matters a lot. And every component of the hiring process needs to be optimized for speed. So, our sourcing tool is a platform we have developed that was built on speed. Our screening technology was developed with, making sure identity validation happens upfront accurately, that information is being collected accurately, so background checks are not being run inaccurately. And then all the dispute process that a worker might have, because the public records that we rely on for a lot of background checks is a commingled, somewhat of a mess, and it factors in 3,150 counties, multiple states. Everyone has different, reporting requirements. So there can be mistakes oftentimes that are just natural part of the business. And we make sure that the dispute process is done very efficiently. We provide multilingual support because we know that a lot of the workforces are immigrant based.
Yeah.
So, all of those little incremental improvements that are focusing on speed is an important part of the process, which allows us to have background check process that can be done, a basic check in sub 1 second, 800 milliseconds, right? And that's real massive improvement because we focused on speed. And our average background check that includes everything from motor vehicle to county criminal is done at a median time of 19 hours, which is significantly faster than 3 to 5 days that most other people take. That's really because we focused on speed.
Mm.
And then, the second part of it is, we really understood that in high volume hiring, the cost structure is really important, because if you're hiring a one-off person, you might pay $50 for a background check or $75 for a background check. But if you're hiring 500 people, that matters a lot. So I think, we've developed a technology that is much more cost efficient, has a lot more automation and AI and machine learning built into it, and is done, I think, in the mindset of high volume hiring. So it's significantly cheaper. We're about 40 to 50% cheaper than anyone else in the industry. We are the low cost leader in the space for high volume hiring. So, so I think for us, anchoring on those two value propositions, become the fastest, become the cheapest, is something that's really resonated very well with our customer base of employers.
Mm.
So I think that's really how we distinguish ourselves in the industry.
Mm. And so how long has Turn been around, and has that shifted at all? Has it narrowed, or has it always kind of been like, I know exactly what we need to do?
Yeah, for most companies, I tell you things evolve. I would tell you, for us, we nailed it right away. So
Okay.
we've been around for over 6 years, and we started with exactly this goal, to
Okay.
be the fastest and the cheapest. And the reason that's really important is because that's how we architected the entire platform, right? It's very difficult to retrofit a new goal to a company when you build it on one thing. So I
Totally.
always tell people, look, if you're hiring 5 people, a month, are we your best solution? Probably, we probably are, but the value that we bring is not going to be palatable to you,
Mm.
because yeah, we're saving you $25 a background check, but at 5 people, that's $100 a month. You're
Hmm.
probably not going to feel that much.
Hmm.
And yes, we're significantly faster, and your checks will be done in a day, but you're only hiring 5 people. So
Hmm.
you're really not going to matter. So I think speed and cost matter less if you're not a high volume employer.
Sure.
So I think, it's a lot of knowing exactly who we wanted to serve, which employer base we want to target, and then finding what mattered to them. And that's how we have found, really good product market fit.
Yeah. So how do you work with a client list? So if somebody calls you and says, we want to work with you to hire 500 people, what's the process, or that you're
Yeah.
willing to share?
Yeah, no, it's very straightforward. We have two product lines. We have our primary product line, which is in the background screening space. So for that process, it's very easy. You can go to turn.ai, you can select a demo, and we'll schedule it one of our account reps, and they'll set it up for you. You'll get credentialing, so you can get a sandbox environment you can play around with and test with. You can run a few sample background checks for free. We validate some compliance information related to that. But then it's really easy to get up and running. I mean, we have, essentially two models. You can use our own dashboard, which requires no integration. So you can just start right away and start initiating background checks for, prospective employees. Or you can do a custom build, which has API integration, and you can, we call it end to end, and you can really customize it so it works with your workflow, your app, your dashboards. So people never have to leave your site. So
Mm.
everything happens natively. So that just depends on how sophisticated your company is and your technology resources are. So
Mm.
it's really a choose your own adventure from that point, and very easy. We can get people started in under 60 seconds. So.
So how much insider knowledge do you have then about like the workforce and how things have changed in the last 6 years since you got started? Because things
Yeah.
have changed a lot. So I'd love to
Ah,
hear about your perspective on that.
yeah. I think we have a very unique perspective because we analyze a lot of data.
Yeah.
We analyze, millions of data points on the hourly workforce. Our database that we've assembled, proprietary, has over 1 million active workers on our database and over 60 million that we track. That's the pretty much 95% of the hourly workforce in the US. So a lot of interesting patterns have been evolving. One interesting change that is probably not surprising for you is, over the last 6 years, the average hourly worker works multiple jobs now versus prior. So back
Mm.
in the day, you might have seen, for example, anecdotally, you might have seen an Uber driver, right? And you would be like, the person drives for Uber. Today, that person probably drives for Uber, drives for Lyft, delivers for Grubhub, does Post or one of these other platforms, also does Amazon deliveries.
Yeah.
So that same person is doing multiple things, and that thematically is something that's very important for us. If you look at larger trends in U.S. labor, we are in a fundamental labor crunch. So we have an aging population. We
Mm-hmm.
have one of the lowest birth rates in the Western world. It's sub
Yeah.
1% now. And we have net migration at its lowest in 20 years.
Yeah.
So people are not coming here from lower GDP economies like they used to. So if you think of the hourly workforce, they are historically predominantly immigrant based and low skilled labor. And that came in influxes from foreign net migration. So we have that coming down. So we're not seeing that influx anymore, and we have an aging population. So who's going to do this work, right? And automation,
Exactly.
people might say robots. Robots are ways away, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I mean, you just try to do anything in the U.S. and you have legal implications on a state by state basis. You have 50 states, so there is no federal law. You can't do like, hey, robots are now allowed everywhere. You can't even do trucking across the country without crossing state borders, right? You have different rules. So that's not happening. So when we think about how do you address labor shortage, the demand is there, but the supply is dwindling. One of the big arguments is productivity has to go up. So each worker that is available must do more. And you're starting to see that already in the last 6 years. That is a big goal for us as a company over the next 5 years is, can we help improve productivity of the workforce by enabling them to have more opportunities, have them be validated through our platform. And we have already 300 plus ecosystem partners that, we're building a coalition to say longer term that, hey, if someone is validated to work within the Turn ecosystem, could they work across all these companies? Right. And that could be something that, develops over time. There's still a number of legal requirements we have to go through, but that's generally from a vision perspective where we see things going. And I think that will help empower workers to find better opportunities easier and to help them become more productive. So.
Yeah. So I noticed on your bio that you won an award that had to do with the fact that you were an immigrant, or is that
Yes.
right?
Yes,
Can
correct.
you tell us about that? And then your perspective on the immigrant population and the need for it, or what your thoughts are on that? Do you mind
Yeah.
sharing that? I don't
Yeah,
want
no
to.
problem.
Okay.
I was very fortunate. So I grew up in a much more privileged family that gave me wonderful opportunities from the education side of the U.S., as well as the ability to work and perform, higher types of jobs like in finance and economics and marketing. So I didn't work in the hourly workforce
Sure.
space necessarily, right? Like a lot of immigrants do. But, for me, when I think about the broader landscape of opportunities, well, something that's really interesting to see is the majority of almost 60% of all open positions in the US are hourly, right? So that is remarkable to see. And the fastest growing sector of labor demand is hourly, growing at almost 3 times the pace of traditional workforce demand. So there is clearly a demand for the type of work that hourly workers do that perhaps non-immigrants don't want to do, or the wage doesn't allow them to do it. They prefer to do something that's higher wage and they're not willing to do it. So if you look at kind of labor demand in the US and you think about where the opportunities are, you will see that a lot of the types of work are focused on lower skill labor. That can be things like driving, delivery, lifting heavy packages. It can be child care as you move up the stream for more skilled work, elderly care, all of those things can move up. So there is low skill as well as medium to high skill labor. There's certifications that some people will need for childcare and elderly care. There can be nursing opportunities, all of that, that plethora of opportunities that move up the scale from low skill to high skill is all available. And, I think immigrants tend to be very resilient workers. So they will do whatever needs to be done, and then they will upskill if they need to get to better opportunities. So I think, that's where a lot of the work that we see in the hourly workforce tends to skew toward immigrant labor.
Mm,
So I don't see that changing. And
mhm,
I see that continuing to be an important part of the labor trends for the next 10 to 15 years.
mhm. I appreciate you addressing that. It does seem like it's complicated and a really big thing for us to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think you're going to start to see it become more central topics over the next 5 to 10 years.
I
Because
do
I think,
too. The
yeah,
lack of like you were talking about, the labor shortage is just going to skyrocket.
yeah.
We're gonna have to find people somewhere.
I mean, I'll give you an anecdotal experience as well. If you just go back 2 years to COVID, think about who was working, who was the essential jobs, right? On the
Yeah,
high end, obviously, you have the medical field, and that obviously exists. But even a lot of the nurses and stuff were, immigrants who came
yeah,
in and had that medical background and came into those roles. Who was doing all the deliveries for Amazon or wherever else? Predominantly immigrants, right? So low skilled labor, our entire economy is built on a foundation of low skilled labor. And I think that is something that many people in America do not recognize on a day to day basis, but grew to appreciate significantly more during the pandemic.
yeah,
And even, when I talk about the venture community and investors, when I was going to the Valley in 2018 and 19, talking to people about what we were building and the focus on hourly labor and immigrant labor, most people looked at me and were like, really? Is this really that interesting? That important to our economy? And
really,
once the pandemic happened, I had a lot of phone calls from investors being like, I remember what you were saying back then. And you're right. This is actually fundamentally really important to our economy. And so I even as a entrepreneur who was pitching investors saw a massive change in investor interest pre-pandemic and post-pandemic. And I think it was just a realization of how much our economy and how much our convenience culture is predicated on hourly labor and the need for it.
hmm Thank you for sharing all that. So you'd also mentioned, what the employer is looking for
Yeah.
in the hourly labor, and I know that background checks and just a probably basic character things are important. But what else do you see employers looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, fundamentally, employers deal with three aspects of labor: acquisition, engagement, and retention, right? Acquisition costs are very high. Engagement is spotty, and retention is very poor. So fundamentally speaking, as an employer, they're having to hire a lot of people consistently because most companies, and even the ones that are mature and established, will tell you they cycle their entire workforce fleet, some as early as 90 days and some, at the best at 180 days. I mean, I think Uber had mentioned most of their workforce retention, their driver retention was at 6 months. That's them. That's Uber 12 years in and, you know, billions of dollars invested into the workforce side of it. Even companies established as Grubhub that have been in the game almost as long will tell you that a lot of their stuff cycles out. Their entire workforce average retention is 90 days. That means their entire workforce fleet is flipping over in 90 days, right? And you're looking at tens of thousands of people. So, if you start to think about, okay, why does that happen? Then, that's the first part is acquisition. It's expensive. You have to do sourcing of talent, background checking of talent, very expensive. If you look at engagement, well, possibly it's because people don't have enough work. So they're constantly looking for other opportunities to fill and create that 40-hour work week. So they're stitching together opportunities, and a lot of opportunities, if it's driving, you have peak periods and non-peak periods. Similarly with delivery. And sometimes workers who work non-peak periods because they have to keep supply, consistent, don't make as much money. And so then they drop off the platform and they have to replenish that worker. So how do you keep someone engaged long enough to make enough money? That's a challenge for companies. And you think about the last part is retention. If you can't provide a livable wage for a worker, if you don't provide any semblance of potentially benefits or things of that nature, upward mobility, whatever it might be, then people may not be happy and will try to keep looking for a better opportunity. So those are probably more complex aspects of the business to deal with. And I think, companies have spent, hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in aggregate, trying to figure out engagement and retention problems. But, we see those three things as being, emblematic of this hourly industry, and, acquisition, engagement, and retention being the three core areas that all companies and all high volume employers have to try to optimize over the next few years.
Mm. I'd like to ask you some questions just about you as a leader and
Sure.
some of the things that you're dealing with. So when you look into the rest of 2023, what is one of like your number one challenge?
I think 2023 is it's a really fascinating year. It's probably one of the most difficult years in venture financing that we have seen in a decade or more, right? So I think for me, along with other entrepreneurs, the most important thing in the second half of 2023 is to become a profitable company,
Mm.
right? And we have done a lot, and a lot of credit goes to my team, my board of advisors and board of directors, and our investors who sat together collectively 6-9 months ago, or actually 9-10 months ago now, and said, hey, we see where the world is going. I think it's really important we optimize the company to become profitable quicker than we had anticipated prior. We are fortunate that we're a company that generates real revenue and real profit from all of the products that we give. We don't give anything away for free. So, in that sense, we're not trying to build a customer base and just millions of users and no revenue. So everything we do generates revenue in our business. So that's a very positive foundation to build on. Then we spent a lot of time optimizing our cost structure and reducing our operating expenses, and everything from software to excess payroll, et cetera. Did that and optimized the business in a good way, worked hand in hand with a lot of our investors and our board of directors and our advisors and our team leaders to make sure, we understood from every staff reduction what we need to automate, what we need to understand and share knowledge across the team so we don't have any gaps. And then we got the company to a very good place now. And then now we're able to kind of continue to invest in sales and marketing automation and get the company to profitability, which I think we're very close to now. So, I think for me and a lot of fellow founders, if you have not done this by now, you're probably a little behind the eight ball. And if you are fortunate enough to have raised a massive war chest in 2021, which is the peak of venture fundraising, you're probably okay. But if you are not that exceptional group of fortunate people, I would probably say that making sure your company can become a profitable business is probably the most important thing for the second half of 2023, because profitability unlocks all the doors.
So what do you see as the greatest opportunity for companies in the rest of the year?
Yeah, I think probably the greatest opportunity is to figure out what works for your company, what is working, who is your ICP, your ideal customer profile, doubling down on that, focusing on that, because that's how you get to profitability. I think what is the allure of prior times and the allure of bull economies is you can test a lot of things, test. You don't have a lot of room to test in a bear market. You don't have a lot of room to test. So what you want to do is hopefully you figured out what works and you can double down on that, and you can, push the levers that move you towards closer to profitability. So I would say that's the biggest opportunity, is double down on what works now.
And about how many employees do you have?
We're a little under 60 employees.
Yeah. So mental health is
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that I'm hearing from CEOs
Yeah.
is a concern. What does your company do to kind of support the wellness of employees in that area?
I think it's a super important aspect of the survival of a business, because one, the last 9 months to a year have been very difficult on employees, not only for founders, not only for investors and advisors and shareholders, but also really for employees, because in tech, at least, a lot of companies have shrunk. So a lot of their peers have been laid off or have managed out or have quit. So you're dealing with that corporate culture side of it, as well as, oftentimes what happens is more responsibility on
Yeah.
fewer, right? That's just the nature of it. So, what we do as a company, and we focus a lot, and we have a wonderful VP of people who does most of this work. So what she does a lot is her team manages and meets with every single person every month. So even though if it's a 30-minute check-in one-on-one, her teams do all of that every month. And then, they tend to cluster around starting with who they think is probably needs the most help, whether it's in groups that have had struggles or groups that have had more layoffs. So there's lots of ways to empirically approach it that way versus just, anecdotally. So we target that way. We understand it. We do an anonymous email survey every month of our entire company. And we talk about, it's only like 3 questions. One of them is specifically about their own mental health, personal and professional.
Okay.
One is about the company culture. One is about accountability and how they feel the company is doing. We do that on a monthly level, and we track it as a company. We're very proud that we have over 8 out of 10 happiness level for a company, which is fantastic given the wild year that it has been for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think we as a company try to be very transparent. We do town halls where we bring everybody together and we talk about everything from performance of the company to fundraising to challenges. We're very open about it. We have very clear metrics that everybody sees as success metrics. It's tangible. So I think that level of transparency has been very important in the mental health side. And then we give people, adequate time off. If people need some time off because they're going through something, either it's personal or family related, we try to do our best. As a small company, that's kind of the benefit that we have. We always manage kind of redundancy for that, and then give people, an extra day off for the weekend or, sick days or whatever else they need. And so we track that pretty well. So I think that's been an important part.
Yeah. And are you remote or
We
hybrid?
are.
Where you at? Yeah, remote.
Yeah, we're 100% remote. Yeah,
Have you always been?
we have always been. When we
Okay.
started the company built on that, one of my friends founded the company 37 Signals, Basecamp. You're familiar with those tools. So DHH is his name, and he's a big believer in the remote culture. So I actually read his book, Remote, before I started the company. And we started remote in 2016, and we've never, so we didn't change because of the pandemic. We always were that way. So we were able to put in a lot of things that matter to remote companies. We used to do quarterly get-togethers as a team around the world. So that we didn't do as much in the last year, given that everything was in flux. But we're coming back to that now. So we're bringing people together again. So we put in things in place to make a remote team more efficient, and we hired very carefully. Generally, so remote teams, you have to rely on people's self-reliance and accountability. So, because you're not there to monitor them every day. So I think that we learned a lot early on, and that's been very helpful for us.
Yeah. So how does your company kind of structure performance reviews or,
Yeah.
you mentioned meeting, maybe your HR teams meeting once a month. What other kinds of things do
Yeah.
you do for that?
So we have, HRT meets with everybody. We have leadership meetings weekly with our leadership team, which is cross-functional. And then I meet with all the senior leaders every week, pretty much. So we have very good communication across different levels of the company. So I think that's good. We do quarterly performance reviews. So that's something we do across the board. We do use PIPs, performance improvement plans, for a lot of people. Fortunately, we haven't had to use that many because I think people tend to do very well. So PIPs, quarterly meetings, monthly meetings, those are really the way we gauge how people perform. And then, when you're in a smaller organization, and I say smaller being probably sub 250 people and maybe even sub 100, accountability is very clear, right? Because there isn't really a huge team to hide from, right? So you pretty much know how people do.
Sure. So, what are the top 3 biggest challenges for your managers?
Good question. I would say focus, accountability, and resilience. So, focus being, uh, I think it's important for people to not get distracted. So, when focus on an idea, execute on that idea, and stay true to it, I think is a very important skill for our managers. Accountability is very important because mistakes are inevitable. People make mistakes, but to understand it, be accountable, learn from it, and not make it again is a key quality I look for in all my leaders. And then resilience is, I think, is really important because this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Burnout is a real thing, and I've been fortunate that I work with very passionate people who work really hard. And I have forced several of them to take vacation time over the last year where they have not, and I've mandated it. I've actually paid for vacation for one of my team members and kicked him out of the company for a week because And then the reality is sometimes people who are like that don't realize it themselves.
Yeah.
But I have worked long enough in my career to have seen when people will burn out, and despite their desire to not burn out.
Mhm.
So I try to, force those mile markers in the sand and say, hey, it's time for you to take a break. Go, put your head in the sand for a week and, come back refreshed. So I think resilience is an important part, both mentally and physically. And so, those 3 qualities, I think, focus, accountability, and resilience, I think are really, really important.
Who should be contacting you? What kind of, company should be looking at Turn as a
Yeah.
potential,
Partner.
yeah, partner, and then how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah. So, I mean, feel free to, come to our website, turn.ai. You can learn all about us, the products that we have. Feel free to explore our beta products if you're interested in sourcing talent. If you're interested in validating screening talent, our screening platform is available. So, if you care about cost, if you care about speed, efficiency, we are definitely a partner that can help you do that. And I think, we value customer support, and the white glove service has been a big part of our company ethos from the beginning. So feel free, if you're a high volume employer or you're interested in high volume employment, feel free to kind of learn more about us at turn.ai. And then you can contact our sales team pretty seamlessly from the website.
Great. Okay, so this is the Voice of Influence podcast. What advice do you have for someone who wants to be a voice of influence in their company?
I would say, the most important thing is to be a resourceful person and a curious person, right? And in my company, we have an open channel in our Slack channel, which is just ideas for the business. And anyone in the company can contribute ideas, and we aggregate all the ideas every month. And then in our monthly big meeting, we discuss the top ideas. So it can come from anybody. It can come from a 22-year-old intern, or it can come from our VP of sales. So, what drives that is curiosity, right? Like people, we are all consumers of products today. Whether we're aware of it or not, we buy things. We make a choice as to why one thing is better than another. So if you see good, marketing ideas, an ad that convinced you to do something, or you're seeing something that we can mimic, imitation being flattery here, then we always encourage everybody to do it. So if you want to be a voice of influence in a company, and you are, regardless of whether you're a senior person or a junior person at the company, I would say stay curious, stay resourceful, and share your ideas. And I hope companies, like us, have that open channel to allow any idea to come through.
Yeah, I love that. I love that right here. Thank you so much for being a voice of influence today for our listeners. Appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.